everyone, it's Rena from Perth IELTS and PTE Tutoring. Welcome to Term 3 of 2026. Now, on July the 1st, as it always happens during tax time and end of financial year, the visa prices for Australian visa applications change. And of course, this year they have changed significantly. And I really want to talk to you guys about it because it does have impacts on how you prepare for your English tests, okay? So let's just get into it a little bit. This might be really useful for some of you. This might be completely useless for many of you. But it's just something I want to share with you guys and talk to you guys about before we go back to, learning and teaching. See you in a minute. So let's just quickly talk about what fee changes I'm I'm referring to. So on this slide here, you can see that there are quite a few subclasses that might be of interest to you. One of them is the temporary graduate. Of course, student visas, definitely, that's really important. International student visas. 485, the temporary graduate visas. And of course, my bread and butter, which is the 189, 190, and 491 visa applications. They have gone up significantly. Okay, and it's really painful to see. You can see over here the 485 has jumped from 4,600 to 5,750. The 189 has gone from 4,910 all the way to 6,135. Now, this is not the main thing I want to talk about. I want to talk about why it's important, okay? Because these higher visa costs can reduce the budget available for your English tests, for your resits, and for your prep, okay? So, in general, I think it's important for those of you who are looking to come to Australia that most major visa applications charges have gone up by a quarter, right? By 25%. Let's talk a little bit about why it should matter to you. Okay? So, why do these higher visa fees matter, and where am I coming from as a private tutor, and what am I trying to tell you? Right? So, let's talk about your migration budget. When you come to Australia, you think, okay, maybe you're an international student, you're coming to Australia, you want to study, maybe someone else is paying for you. Or maybe you're an adult and you're trying to migrate here, right? So let's look at, first of all, the application cost itself is something you need to think about. Then you've got your English test fees that you need to think about. You've got your test prep fees to think about. And then what happens if you fail the first attempt, right? The other things that always need to come into place also are med examinations before you come, police clearances, skills assessments for certain visas. Let's say you're coming here to be an engineer or a nurse, and then all your documents being translated and notarized, signed and photocopied, and multiple copies made and notarized. And then, of course, getting to Australia. So it's not just an increase in your visa application fee, you need to factor in all these things. So when your visa fees have gone up, I need you as applicants and test takers to make sure that you do everything you can to continue preparing for these English tests. And the preparation shouldn't suffer, right? Especially for those of you who are trying to get here before, the end of 2025, 26, right? So this is just a quick example of how these costs can really add up, right? So let's say you're a typical visa applicant, you're an international student. The application fee is 2,500. The English test, it doesn't matter which one you choose, whether it's IELTS or PTE. Some of you may go for OET, CELPIP, whatever. But let's just look at IELTS and PTE for today. $500. Prep and resources. Whether you go for a private tutor, you go to a language institute, you just sign up for a website, you could be spending anywhere between 100 and 300 Australian dollars just preparing for the test. Your medical examination on average will cost about 400 bucks. Police clearances depend on how many countries you've lived in the past decade, so that will vary. Document prep, translation, notarization, and stamping and all that also varies. And then travel, especially if you're applying from offshore and you want to come onshore. All those things really matter. The costs really, really start to build up. And then what happens if you didn't quite get the score you needed. So then you got to sit for another English test, which is another $500, and you need to prep all over again. So if you look at it this way, one unsuccessful test attempt can easily add on, say, $700 to your migration journey. And that's even before you get here, right? What we do know is the visa fee is fixed. The minimum requirements for your migration to Australia, whether it's as an international student, as a permanent resident, as a temporary resident, all those fees are fixed. The only thing that is quite fluid are your English test preparation part of it. You know that you will still need to sit for the English test. How many times you sit for it and how you prep for it, that is completely under your control, right? So let's talk about how you budget for your English test and questions I would like you to ask yourselves, okay? Just remember that in Australia, especially if you're sitting for the test onshore, that both IELTS and PTE academic cost approximately $500. What really matters now for you is to choose the right test. There's no such thing as a cheaper test because they're about the same, right? Choose the right test for yourself. First thing you need to find out is what level of English do I actually need? You will need on a scale either proficient, competent, superior English. You need to know that level before you choose the test. Okay, you need to understand it for your visa, for whatever education body that you're applying to, if there's a registering body or a licensing body, or even your employer. I really don't need you to aim any higher than you need to, right? So if you think, oh, it will be nice to get superior, everybody wants to have superior command of English, but what do you really need? Then you're going to look at which test suits you best. Okay. And there are two things I really need you to consider. One, that it matches your natural skills. And the other one is that you can achieve your goal just that little bit faster. Okay. That's how you choose the exam, right? The next thing you need to ask yourself is, can I prepare for this test on my own? And I always do encourage a lot of self studying, right? You need to weigh up the pros and cons. Will self study be enough? Or do you need some guidance? Which one saves you more money and more time, right? And if you do need support, what type of support do you need? Do you want to self study? Do you want a private tutor like myself? Do you think you'd do better off in a group session in an institute? Would you prefer to go for like a 12-week course for, say, IELTS, right? You need to figure these things out. And all of that factors into how much you end up spending on your English. Because we know now you're going to spend a whole lot more on your visa. Okay? Next, practice platforms and which ones offer the best value. So, obviously, for PTE academic, there are lots of practice platforms. For IELTS, it isn't quite the same, it's a lot more difficult. But you need to think about the quality of these platforms and focus on what you really need. Okay? Number six, and this is really important, you urgently need to apply for your visa. And I get that, right? There are soft deadlines and there are hard absolute deadlines. What you need to decide is, when should I book for my official test, for the actual test? If you book it too early and you don't get the score you need, you'll need to resit. Too late and you've delayed your visa and or changed your having you have to change your plans. So picking the right time to sit for the test also matters, right? Now, number seven is where people like myself come in. How can I reduce the risk of an expensive resit? Okay, so great. Yeah, you'll say, oh, IELTS has one skill retake. That is if you've screwed up in only one skill, right? But if you've got two aspects, say reading and writing, that are below the required amount, you have to sit for the whole test all over again anyways, right? So you need to consider your preparation strategies, how much time you're willing to practice, timing, and your level of confidence before you book your test. This is what I would like you to start thinking about. When our visa fees increase, you need to take steps to ensure that your English test prep does not suffer. Because again, this is the one cost that we can reduce. All the other costs are fixed, right? So And this is also another interesting one. I want you to remember this and get it in your head. The most expensive English test is the one you have to take twice. All right? If we plan it really well, plan it today, we might be able to save a bit of time, a little bit of money, and save you a whole lot of stress. Okay, so this is a little bit of an outline before we finish up for the day. Every decision counts. This is a simple plan to avoid the expensive reset. All right? Step one, I need you to find out what you need, not what you would like, what you actually need, the exact level or score that you need for your visa or your university application. Next, choose the right test. Not everybody is suited to PTE academic, and certainly not everybody is suited to IELTS. All right? Then you need to prepare effectively. Whatever resources, that's totally up to you. And I support you in whichever way you would like to go. Whether you want to go to an institute, you want to self prep, you would like to go to group classes, whatever suits you best. When it comes to the right time, you know that you can book your test with confidence. Okay? When you're really ready, not too late, but not so early that, you probably fail, that you're not ready enough. Okay? So, as I said earlier, I've got soft deadlines and hard deadlines. A soft deadline would be the ideal time to get the score that you need, and the hard deadline is the absolute last date before you really need the English proficiency test results so you can lodge your application, right? And the main thing in this situation, especially as the costs are rising and they're going up quite significantly, your main aim should be to avoid a resit, right? In an ideal world, we all want to get superior English or we want this really high score, but because the cost of the visa has blown out so much, the main thing is to for you to reduce the cost of the English tests, okay, and how much you spend preparing for them and how much you spend on the actual test itself. Good prep and smart timing just gives you that little bit of confidence and fewer expensive mistakes. Okay, so that was a really short and quick one, and I hope it's been helpful because I do want you guys to understand that if you prepare really well, if you understand that these visa price changes are quite a financial burden, not just to you, but especially if you've got dependents or you're being, one of your parents, or your parents are paying for you, you've got a guardian that's supporting you. This is how you do it. Just consider and be very deliberate when it comes to choosing the exam and when it comes to how you prepare. Okay? Whether you want to go with the guys who have package deals, whether you think you can do it yourself, whether you just want to sign up to a platform, whatever it is, take it into consideration and understand that all the other costs are fixed, except how much you spend on prep. Okay? All right, I hope that has been slightly helpful. For those of you who would like to know more about the visa costs and fees, the links are all below. It's all from the Department of Home Affairs of Australia. And yeah, the next time, of course, I will go back to, the regular stuff like PTE, right? Essay or something. Thank you so much and welcome again to term 3. And I hope to make somewhat helpful videos next time. All right, see you guys. Bye.